Hello, sports fans! It's Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Welcome to Cleats by Dre. I'm Dre. Let's talk some sports. Yes, wow, wow, wee, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wee, wow. I'm channeling Borat here. We're riding high in Cleats land. Not only are the New York Mets headed to the playoffs, but they did it in the kind of inspiring, never give up flair for the dramatic fashion. Just keeps you smiling the rest of your day, like a Borat type smile. We'll get to the Mets more in a little bit. But the feature of this episode, the feature is going to be about playoffs, but playoffs that have already been going on. Basketball too, y'all. Yes, the WNBA playoffs are in full swing. Our local New York Liberty are odds-on favorites to bring a title to New York. So we'll be watching. We've been watching. We will be watching. I'm actually so lucky to have a member of my family, my cousin Betty. She's going to join me for the second half of this episode as we get into all things W. Why she got into it, what's special about it. We break down the current Liberty Aces series as the Liberty try to conquer their own version of a bugaboo, their own Atlanta Braves right now. Really excited to get into the W with her. And look, over the weekend, right, Notre Dame held serve, beat a good team in Louisville. Covering, as I predicted, barely. The Jets looked not so good. The Knicks made a huge trade. We got to break that down. We're going to get into Knicks and basketball. Let's save that topic for a future pod. I can't do Notre Dame. I can't do Jets. Before we get to the W, it's all Mets on my mind, baby. A quote to start us off with the Mets. If somebody is gracious enough to give me a second chance, I won't need a third. That's from Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle himself. It very well applies to these fighting New York Mets, who pulled out the win today in Game 1 against the Braves. It's certainly the most exciting regular season MLB game in recent memory. The Mets came back from the grave on multiple occasions. If somebody is gracious enough to give me a second chance, I won't need a third. On the day he passed away, on a day when baseball lost perhaps its most controversial, most embattled hero, 4,256 hits in all, a record that has stood for nearly half a century, doesn't appear to be challenged anytime soon. You have to think Pete Rose would have appreciated the heart, the hustle, the grit, not only given how rare it is in today's game, but these Mets, these LOL Mets, the Grimace Mets, the Hawk Tua Mets, the OMG Mets, they've shown the heart, hustle, and grit all year. So let's look at this win, this franchise exhaling, franchise exclaiming 8-7 victory over the Atlanta Braves in Game 1 today of this wacky how did we get here doubleheader that clinched the Mets a playoff spot. Their 11th playoff appearance. 11. What a number. That's 11 playoff appearances in 63 years. 17%. Once every 6 years. Let's compare that to some of our other local teams. The Yankees, 59 playoff trips in 122 seasons, 1-2. The Knicks, one of the worst NBA franchises in history, historically speaking, right? 41 times in 76 seasons, more than 1-2. You know, in basketball, of course, more teams have made the playoffs traditionally. The Giants, 33 playoff trips in 100 seasons, 33%, 1-3. And even the Jets, who probably have the title as the least successful franchise in New York, New Jersey, 14 times in 65 seasons, 22%. That's more than 1-5. 11 times for the Mets, 1-6. If you've been a Mets fan since their inception in 1962, and you watched every regular season game, you watched over 10,000 games, and you've only gotten the chance to see your team clinch a playoff spot 11 times. That's the backdrop for how special today was. Why it made us feel a little different. Baseball stands on its own as a type of fandom that deserves an ultimate investment. And sometimes, depending on the team you root for, it so rarely pays out. So the Mets in the playoffs is rare. Yet the Mets are also one of the more excruciating, nail-biting franchises. I saw this stat come across my X feed today. In the last 27 seasons, the Mets will have either qualified or missed the postseason by a single game 6 times. 6 out of 27. The average MLB team, that's happened less than twice in that span. We've had 6 nail-biters at the end of the year. I'm not going to look it up, but I'd wager that hasn't happened to the Yankees once in that whole time period. So let's celebrate today. For the Mets, let's look at the 11 biggest memories I'll have from today. Starting with number 11, just the overall, how did we get here? Right? And I'd really love at some point, maybe a nice 30 for 30 ESPN documentary for what went on with the scheduling of this doubleheader. Because MLB, they happenstance into an all-time game with so much on the line, so much at stake for both teams. Ratings-wise, I'm sure it did great, right? The game slid to ESPN2. And maybe if this game plays out as it should have on a Wednesday the previous week, it's still quite an important matchup. But I just think overall, I mean, it just feels embarrassing for Major League Baseball. It had to happen like this on a Monday with the teams, being pressed, the Mets having to travel so much. But really embarrassing is how unfortunate it really was for the Diamondbacks, right? And you could say, yeah, they should have won more games. They wouldn't be in this situation. But a doubleheader where, honestly, it was a true game theory. Both teams should have forfeited. Each team forfeits once, they agree, and they both make the playoffs. And so it set up a kind of a really, as good as game 1 was, game 2 became less of a competition, as the Mets, and it would have been the Braves in reverse, had no incentive to really try. So really just not, I think MLB lucked into an incredible game, but the setup really, really leaves a competitive will, leaves it out there to be desired. And then how we got here too, also, we got to recognize for the Mets the House of Horrors that Truist Park or Turner Field or Fulton County Stadium has been for the Mets since the 90s. I'm not going to go through every detail. Never anything good, always something bad. So just really quite a context for this game in this moment today. Number 10 memory is the first 6 innings of the game. Really, into even the first 7 innings, right? Spencer Schwellenbach had the Mets number. He was on pat. He threw a third straight incredible game against the Mets. They couldn't get anything going against him. Even if they got guys in scoring position, couldn't do anything to bring them in. I mean, this guy, a rookie, stuff of legends, stuff of Mets opponent legends. And really, what started the show was the oddity of the stakes in this game, where 6 innings in, the Mets were down 3-0. Mendoza started managing to prep for game 2. He brought in Brazaban and Ottavino, guys at the end of the bullpen, as he should have, right? You didn't want to burn your arms if you're going to chase. And so just the oddity and just how kind of quiet the first 6 innings were. And I'll get to more how that changed in one of the next few. But Schwellenbach, I always remember this guy as just a thorn in our side. Number 9, it's Tyler McGill, and he pushed. The Mets have won the last 5 starts. We'll make it 6 now. McGill pitched great, right? 5 innings, 7 Ks. Couple mistakes, right? A couple hangers to Albies, to Laureano. And this comes on the back of David Peterson's heroic start on Sunday. And it's crazy. We're not going to talk much about the weekend Mets games, but with Peterson and McGill, right? The Mets' homegrown pitchers over the last 10 years. And I'll be honest, based on how they finished last year, I didn't even realize they were still in the picture. The offseason was about, Senga coming back and about, signing Minaya and Severino and Quintana coming back. They traded for Hauser from Milwaukee. Like, I didn't even think these guys were still in the picture. And then I saw them start coming up and they're pitching. And these guys, came strong towards the end of the year. And now the Mets have a deep rotation going into the playoffs. So Tyler McGill kept the Mets in the game, made it possible for what was about to come. Memory number 8 is the way Tyrone Taylor's played. And, he's been strong enough going back a few weeks now. He's a gamer. Mendoza's rewarded him with playing time. The oddity of the play with how he tore the cover off the ball, I've never seen that. The way that happened early on in the game where, the ball kind of spun around. And to his credit, he's hustling. He beat that out. I don't think a lot of the Mets players would have beat that out. And then he steals a base. And he moves over to third on a ground ball. And Bader couldn't bring him in, sure. But between that hustle play and then really he spelled the end of Schwellenbach. A 12-pitch at-bat, doubling in the gap, starting the rally in the 8th. Tyrone Taylor, gamer, deserves more playing time, continue to play. The great defense he plays. Wow. Mets lore getting in there. Guys like Andy Chavez we're talking. But big plays from Tyrone. Number 7 goes Jose Iglesias and his at-bat in the 8th inning. The Braves went early to their closer, their lockdown guy, Raciel Iglesias. It was Iglesias versus Iglesias. The church versus church battle. And he didn't look great, right, on the first couple pitches. But good teams have good hitters with 2 strikes that don't strike out, that put it into play. He sat back on the fastball, took it to the opposite way. And boy, the rally was rolling. It was already rolling. I think that's the hit that tied it up. Trust and believe. F-bombs were flying. It was something about this rally, something about the team we were doing it against, something about that silly tongue sticking out that Harris had in center field. F-bombs were flying. I'm sitting at home watching on the laptop. I'll be honest, illegal. I'm streaming, right? We talked about I don't have SNY. ESPN2 feed was blacked out here in New York. I got crack streams going on the laptop, but I'm letting the F-bombs fly. It's the release I talked about, but Iglesias has been clutch. He's got to stay in that 2-hole the whole playoffs. Incredible. Leads us to right after that, right? Number 6, Nimmo's homer. Again off Iglesias. Oh my God, he crushed it. He pimped it. Man's had an edge. Nimmo's had an edge last month. Something got into him. He started realizing, hey, he's the leader. Maybe Lindor going out for those 10 days helped. He had to stand up, tell the fans to show up. He's had an edge. No more just Mr. Nice Guy. Oh my God, I saw it live. Rounding second base, right? So slow. Actually, they registered slowest home run trot of Nimmo's career by 3 seconds. 25 seconds. He enjoyed it. And that tongue stick out that he put into center field to Michael Harris, you better believe all the Mets saw that. Oh my God, was that perfect? Ugh, what a bomb. What a big time player. 6-3 Mets. And then we go to number 5. And I'm going to the Francisco Lindor bomb in the 9th inning. Athletes can be heroes too, right? We did that episode about the same guy. This is Lindor's team. Put the C on his chest. The Mets got a real live hero, folks. And the way he knocked it out, the way he just put his head down and ran around, man, and actually just thinking of Francisco and seeing him in the celebration on the field afterwards, seeing the release from him, with a lot of money that he gets, a lot of pressure comes, and he's had lots of downs to go with his ups in New York so far. So happy for him. And honestly, full disclosure, I was getting a kid to a doctor's appointment at this point. I had already, after the Mets went down in the 8th inning, I was already thinking about game 2. I was walking to my car. My dad called me. I didn't want to pick it up, partly because I don't get good service in my neighborhood. I turn on the radio when I get in the car, and I'm like 30 seconds after the call. I'm listening to Howie talk about, the quote from the famous fan, or they had a poster that said, "There are no words." I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Did something happen? The Lindor bomb. Already up there, the best home runs in Mets history. Incredible. Number 4, biggest memory I'll have, and these are not in order, folks, by the way. These are kind of like sequential, right? Kind of like time-based. The Edwin Diaz rope-a-dope, right? Oh my God, did he look asleep in the 8th inning? I almost excommunicated him, right? After forgetting to cover first base, that's more unforgivable than giving up the base-loaded double. But not having your head in the game to cover first base, that was almost it for me. I was shocked they let him come back in the 9th. Apparently he pushed for it, and he shuts the door. Right at this point, I'm in the car with the kiddos. I'm driving them to a doctor's appointment. As I hear the ground ball of Lindor, he throws it over, windows down in my car, in the neighborhood screaming, "Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!" These people probably not even caring about what's going on. And then I hear little voices in the back jumping in with little, "Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!" of their own. My 2 sons. Keep in mind, these same Rugrats, right, who I love, always ask me who the team I'm rooting for is playing against, so they can find a new favorite team. Maybe they saw how much I cared, how excited I was. Little "Let's go Mets" of their own. I'll always remember that. And I'm bringing them along this week to watch with me. So, memory number 3, esteemed Cleats by Dre listener Rob pointed this out to me, right? We got to talk a little bit about game 2. And Joey Lucchesi, we got to give him some credit. 111 pitches. He's been throwing relief recently in the minors. 6 innings, 1 run allowed. I mean, for one, it kept the Mets in this game where, geez, for a while in game 1, I was just like, beat him in game 2. Take him down. But nothing else, right? Save the bullpen arms. Good for him, because there are other MLB teams watching that start. He'll get more opportunities next year. A guy that's had some decent success at times in the majors. I saw on X, his mom gave him a nice tweet saying, "I'm proud of you, Joey." And that was huge. That was huge for us for a lot of reasons, to save some arms. 2 more. All right, so memory number 2 I'll take from this is now in the celebration, right? And I actually was so happy I had an SNY feed, because I was able to watch the celebration, watch the interviews, watch Gary, Keith, and Ron kind of sign off, and how special, right? It reminded me how special this local regional networks can be, right? You don't get that in the NFL. But the architects and the leaders of this team, right? First, getting to hear Mendoza's speech in his interview. And he was talking about organization-wide success. This is the manager, not the general manager, talking about the importance of player development, of scouting. Oh, man, Mendoza's a keeper. Then the savviness with which he managed the pitching staff. Somehow convincing or imploring both Brazoban and Ottavino to pitch both games. Saving so many of the other arms from the pen. You got to figure Brazoban or Ottavino, one or 2 of them are not going to be on this wild card roster. So getting them out of them. David Stearns, right? The lifelong Mets fan, about my age. We grew up, we didn't know each other, but we grew up watching coming of age to baseball to the same teams in the 90s that never had success in Atlanta. And then the shrewd executive. And actually, I don't think shrewd's the right term for him. Isn't he such a positive guy? Always talking about a positive culture. Always has a smile on his face. Always optimistic. He has a smile on his face even if he's talking about something that's not too pleasant. He's done an incredible job in the first year, just getting us started. And then the ultimate leader is the Cohens, the Cohen family. How cool to see Steve and Alex there in the locker room, getting their own champagne bath, being a part of it. They've been so close to this team. Steve said he was in tears in the eighth inning. You can't ask anything more from your owner. So look, number one memory, enjoying this moment. And some of you that aren't Mets fans are like, Trey, you're going on. They didn't win the title yet, but I talked about how important it is just to get in the playoffs. How rare that is for the Mets. But number one memory is enjoying the moment, but recognizing we're not done yet, right? The Brewers tomorrow. We're going back to Milwaukee. And I don't have the energy, and you don't probably have the ears right now for a full preview. So I'm just along for the ride, guys. We actually just had a recent trip to Milwaukee, a recent series, right? We know they're going to run. We know their bullpen's good. But man, the Mets have something going on. They got a mojo. They got the 2019 Nationals thing going on. And, is it too much travel? Are they beat up? Are they going to be hung over tomorrow? One more Charlie Hustle quote, one more Pete Rose quote. I'd walk through hell in a gasoline suit to play baseball. And that's what I think of with this team. Hell in a gasoline suit. So rest in peace, Charlie Hustle. And Mets fans, in over 10,000 games, reasons to go wild and cheer are few and far between. Enjoy every minute of this. Every breath you get from this point forward with this team. You've earned it. They've earned it. And just so you know, the number 6 seed has made it to the World Series both years since it's been added. Stay tuned. Let's have some fun. Okay, now to myself and Betty with a conversation that we had Sunday night about the WNBA. Enjoy. All right, Cleats listeners, we know you can hear me talk Mets, Giants, Notre Dame till I'm blue and orange and red and gold in the face. But I've love for all the sports because there's so much to enjoy. In particular here in New York, where we're in the hunt for a championship. Well, no team is better situated for a championship right now than the New York Liberty of the WNBA. So we're going to talk some WNBA. And I'm very honored and touched that I have a big WNBA fan in my family, my cousin Betty. So Betty's here. Welcome, Betty. How are you?
What's up? I'm good. How are
Oh,
you
good.
doing?
Good. I'm excited to get in. I mean, it's not in my wheelhouse, but so much interest in the game on the women's side.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get into this.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Well, first, as a background for the listeners, right? So you're a few years my younger. We won't say how much, but and I grew up in New York. You grew up in Massachusetts. We didn't see each other too frequently growing up. We
Yeah.
had family get-togethers, and we invented something called Stombies. Yeah, we're bringing Stombies onto the pod. Would you like to explain to the audience what a Stombie is?
Yes. Maybe the newest Olympic sport one of these days, hopefully. Basically, we would just lift each other up with our feet. Usually it was Andre lifting me and my sister
I
in
was a
the
little
air.
bigger. I was a little bigger and older, so I was probably doing the lifting and what was
Yeah.
the zombie?
It's kind of like acro yoga, really. Like people do this, in gyms, but we sort of invented it on our own as well.
Acro? Would you say acro yoga?
Yeah, it's almost like stunting and cheerleading, but different sort of like yogi poses of lifting each other and standing on each other, all that fun stuff.
Zombie, like it's a mix of like stomp, right? And bomb. So all I
I have
remember is
no
you and
idea.
your sister, of course, just being propelled onto me on a couch and like just me being destroyed and laughing and
Yep.
family ritual. That's
Yeah.
so we're all grown up now, so no more zombies. But
Yeah.
um we were together, what was it? Was it early this summer? My dad's birthday get together. You
Fourth of
told
July.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
talking about the WNBA and how you're into it. So how long have you been into the WNBA at this point?
Yeah, I'm a recent fan. Last year I sort of got into watching the Liberty with some friends at watch parties. It was a really big like community building thing, really. But I went to my first Liberty game this year, against LA. It was actually right after Cameron Brink was injured. She was the number 2 draft pick. So we were hoping to see her, but just being there for the first time was so exciting. Um, and yeah, since then I've really gotten into it.
And what do you think made you get into it so much? Was it like a friends thing or like have you always been kind of had an eye on it and then like, oh wow, Liberty people getting together for this? Like what really drew your interest?
Yeah, part of it was, I mean, that I live so close to Barclays Center and, got to see Liberty games and get into it. Um, I think it came at a serendipitous time when I was looking for some like inspiration in my life and
Mhm.
looking to these women who are so strong and impressive and talented. Um, was just like so enticing. I watched the Olympics. It was really cool to see all the Olympians on the different teams. Um, and then I think, it's a real hub for community, for women, for queer women also. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's been like a great experience to meet people through it, but also to learn about the sport and just to watch these incredible athletes.
Yeah. Wow, you hit on the word inspiration there. And isn't that like a big one about sports? Like being
Yeah,
part of something bigger. Not only that, but like watching incredible athletes of any type, of any, ability persevere. Like that's in
right.
it. It's like I think there's people out there that are either into that hook, line, and sinker, or like, oh, well, that's just sports. That's just that. So it's that's cool. That's part of that.
Yeah. And I don't play basketball. It's actually probably one of my worst sports, but the fact that, they could be doing anything and they're working hard, persevering through losses, whatever it is inspiring in itself.
So then when how much have you been into other sports, I guess, like uh, last last 5 years, last decade, like and or is this really your first like going to the I know I think your dad's like a big Jets fan, right? And like
Yeah, my dad always watched football and baseball growing up, and I really have never been as into any sport as this, which is really interesting, and it surprised all of my friends. They're like, "Who is this person?" Um, but yeah, I this is kind of my one sport. I watched a bit of the like women's soccer in the last couple years. I know they were in the media a lot, but really it's just the W for me.
and just curious, are some of your friends similar? We're like it's a one sport kind of fandom because
Oh
you
yeah.
my story, I'm like freaking everywhere. I have a calendar of stuff, but is it similar?
Yeah.
That's
I would say not everybody, but a significant amount of people are
yeah.
just fans of WNBA.
That's so cool. And you're there in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. You're in a moment with a hot team. But also at the same time, that's not your main team, the Liberty. Who's your main team right now?
So the secret's out. I'm actually an Aces fan,
The
which
Las
is
Vegas Aces. Yeah.
Las Vegas Aces, which is tough because there's this rivalry, obviously, between the Aces and the Liberty. But um, as we sort of talked about before, I don't know if this makes me a bad sports fan, but I like so many teams and so many players, and sometimes wish I could root for everyone. Um, but yeah, I got really into the Las Vegas Aces. I just love their their energy, their vibe. They have so many amazing players on the team. 4 American Olympians, I think 2 others that played in different countries. Um, yeah, and they just, it was tough being an Aces fan this season because, you would think like, oh, that's the easy team to root for. They've won the championships twice, but they were 5th seed this year and had to get through a lot. They had some injured players. So it's been rough, but yeah, I'm with the Aces right now.
Cool. And like I mean we got to read in our listeners too, because like I think it's a WNBA light probably knowledge base. But right,
Hmm.
I mean, but I think a lot of people would know the Aces have won the last 2 titles. And last year they beat the Liberty in the finals. In
Yeah.
heavily I'm going to make up a word. Looked forward to matchup, right? They were the two best teams
Hmm.
here. And
Yeah,
now the Aces and Liberty are in the semifinals. Game one was today. Betty, you were there, but actually, I want to pause, and we'll come back to like this matchup because I want to do a quick macro WNBA view, right?
sure.
Uh, And even before that, you hit on something that was interesting because it's okay. You're not a bad sports fan. You can be a fan of teams.
Thanks,
You know,
Andre.
a fan of the league.
Right.
And for listeners know, in some of my last pods, I'm like, the NFL is becoming like that, right? We're like, you just want to watch, guys just want to watch the games, right? They have their own fantasy football teams, but like, there's less and less of like the diehard just, of the team. So I think that's totally fine. Um,
Yeah, I tried to watch as many games as possible, really, this year. So
that's
I
great.
just want, good basketball, really.
So you're kind of in relatively recently. 'Cause there's definitely been a rise in popularity overall in the WNBA lately. I have a couple stats that I hope offer. Then I'm curious if you have any thoughts as to why like the sudden kind of surge.
Mhm.
So this past year, game attendance at the WNBA hit its highest level in 22 years, and almost 50% higher than last year. WNBA social media accounts drew nearly 2 billion video views. That's more
Wow.
than quadruple the amount of the past year. And then television viewers, right? 54 million unique viewers on the different networks it's on, the Disney, ABC, and ESPN. It's on CBS. It's on Ion and NBA TV. That's triple of last year. So like huge interest this year.
Yeah.
There's maybe one obvious reason why that is, but just in general, like what do you think is like driving this, or like what's interesting about it to you, or like do you have more friends watching now? Like what's going on?
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. I think in some ways it's sort of a perfect storm of a lot of things. Um, Obviously some of the players, there's a lot of folks who love some or a lot of the rookies that have come in. Um, I think, sort of like I talked about before, it's a really big opportunity for people to find community. Um, that's, how I know a lot of people who've gotten into it. They just heard that it's, so much fun to go to a Liberty game or to go to a watch party, things like that. Um, but also, we have to talk about like the larger cultural shift of, you know, questioning gender norms and women being in the spotlight, LGBTQ folks. The WNBA has also always been really political and had like an activist spirit, and I think that draws people in. So I think there are a lot of different entry points for folks that sort of get you in there. A lot of different partnerships with brands that people like, so it's more visible in a lot of ways. Um, and then a really interesting thing is the social media aspect. People love the behind the scenes sort of like look into the players' lives. And that wasn't something that, we had before, even in the past couple of years, that's grown a lot. So I think that's another interesting entry point to look at.
Yeah, no, you mentioned a few things. You mentioned right the community aspect, the political activism aspect, the social media aspect. You did mention the rookies. Um, Lots of things happening. It's almost like people I definitely I recognize more of WNBA athletes being looked as like broader endorsers and sponsors, right? And I mean,
Yeah,
I was watching the game today, and maybe that's I haven't watched as much games, so I haven't consumed the advertisements as much. But Deloitte had a commercial up, and it was
yeah,
really funny. It was like a couple
yeah,
of the athletes. I know Tarasi was in it, and I couldn't recognize the other two because I'm not a big enough fan. Um, but it seems like a lot, and like you're saying, the wider political movements going on. It's interesting.
yeah.
Um, the other part, the elephant I was saying is Caitlin Clark, right? Because when you said rookies, do you think it's been mostly Caitlin, or like everyone's Angel Reese, and or it because like I think there's
Yeah.
people that look like, all right, Caitlin Clark drove record numbers, right, in college for viewership.
Hmm.
And now the WNBA is feeling that, and some people are like, it's other things.
Right. I mean, Caitlin is a big part of it, like in the past, obviously there was Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael
Hmm.
Jordan, obviously, like there's moments in time when just an amazing player shows up on the scenes. And I think Caitlin too is she's almost like relatable. Also, she's tall, she's 6 feet, but she's not a Brianna Stewart or Asia Wilson. She's almost like the girl next door. So people
Yeah.
can see her and almost imagine themselves, like I can do this too. Um, but the other rookies, I think, have garnered definitely not as much attention, but people who are just getting into the league, I think, are interested in, this new rookie class. It's sort of their class of, they're just joining the WNBA and we're just becoming fans. Um, Caitlin Clark, one of her best friends from college, is also a rookie, fan favorite. Angel Reese, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, you can't deny, I mean, Caitlin Clark is amazing. She won Rookie of the Year. Um, yeah, she's a big part of this.
Well, that's where I was looking at some of the underlying like increases in the viewership, and it was interesting. The Sports Business Journal had an article because I mean, obviously, like viewership's up across the board, all demographics. Like if you triple your viewership, it's going to be up. But their point was the cohorts three things, young, male, and white are the three biggest ones that are up. And so like
Interesting.
the young, so that's girls age 2 to 17, viewership's up 181%. And for me, it's like young kind of makes sense where like anytime like a megastar, and Caitlin is a megastar because I even think the way she plays is an exciting way to play, right? With the behind the back
Yeah.
passes, the 3-point shooting, the way the
Yep.
offense is up. So I think young kids, right, they get up, um, they want to watch whenever there's a young star like that.
Hmm.
And the male part, I could speak to this, right? The male part is they're saying on CBS they were like males now make up 50% of WNBA viewers compared to 48% the year before. I think the quality of the game is up. And like I don't want to be like, oh, men only like watching like good game, but like the bigger, more established group of sports fans are male. And so like
Yeah.
see, and I was watching the game today and it was in the background, but I was like watching and I was like, I need to clarify the statement. In the background, because the Mets are in a huge playoff race and the Jets, there's a lot of things
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on. It looked like an NBA game. I'm not gonna lie. And I consider that a
Oh
compliment.
yeah.
Like the way, I know no one's dunking as much, or the
No one's dunking.
athleticism is not the same, but like the way the team played with the shooting and the passing, in some ways it was a little crisper than an NBA game.
Hmm.
So that helped. That's the male part I could see too. The white one might be the more interesting one, right? Or the one where we don't want to go all the way there to talk about, but like I think there's a part in what non-Hispanic white viewers grew 301% on ESPN Network, so that's three times as much.
Mm. Yeah.
You were kind of saying it's something about Caitlyn, right? Is with the ponytail, and it's just something more relatable for the white audience, and she's played in Indiana. Like I
Yeah.
you don't have to go to it, but it's just an interesting point. Young male and white is where it's up, and I mean the numbers are up overall, but um,
Yeah,
it's just
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
well, it's just I comment on it because like there's been a lot of unfortunately like a lot of the tension in the news, the mainstream news is about some of the racial harassment that some of the prime
Yeah.
players, I think the African American players are getting.
Hmm.
And like there's an element of that's anytime you get that much more interest, unfortunately, we're still in America, right? We're still in America where like we know we have not only, some race things we're still working on, but also we have some idiots on social media that will do stupid things like send messages. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of the new fans coming in, the Indiana, Caitlin Clark. So I just hope there's so much good basketball going on in the
Yeah.
league. You just don't want
Yeah.
it to be that to be the main storyline. So
No.
my diatribe's over. That's where the outsider who's watched one WNBA game and like
No,
the last
it's an interesting
five
perspective.
days.
Yeah.
Like to break it down like that.
Yeah.
Um, but let's go into the series. You were at the game today. You were at Barclays,
Was.
game one in Vegas and New York, right? They're playing in the semifinals this year because, like you said, the Aces had the 5 seed.
Hmm.
How was the game today? What's the atmosphere like?
Every Liberty game is, the energy's electric, but it was especially crazy today because it's the semifinals, it's a big rivalry. Um, it was a good game. Liberty was playing out of their minds. I was a little disappointed in the Aces. They've really picked up in the past, 5 to 7 games. They've been playing, I think, their best all season. So I was really excited to see them at their peak. But Liberty was carrying the game the whole time, really. Um, there were a fair amount of Aces fans in the audience, which I appreciated. Um, but yeah, just like so electric.
Yeah. Yeah, it came through on the TV where like what I mean is how well Liberty came out and played and
Hmm.
what the story is in the finals last year. So Brianna Stewart, who's I think undeniably the Liberty's best player.
Yeah.
Sabrina's and that's she's great too, and Jonquil Jones are great too. But Brianna is a two-time former MVP. I saw she shot 35% from the field in last year in
Yeah.
the playoff. But she came out and she scored 34 today, something like that.
Hmm.
And Iniescu, she was on fire, 9 for 15. So the series are best of five, right? At the semifinals.
Yeah.
So Liberty went up one. Did you see anything different from what you were expecting from the Aces or the Liberty based on watching them this year?
Well, it was interesting to see the defensive matchups. I think the Liberty definitely has a bit of an advantage when it comes to like the size of their players. So the Aces certainly struggled with who was guarding, at sometimes Stewie and JJ. And when they had to switch, there was a lot of times a mismatch and they had no chance to guard these players. So I think that's going to have to be a big thing that the Aces focus on. Yeah, Liberty just looked really clean. They were shooting well. Jonquil Jones is often like one of the defining
Mm.
factors of if a game goes well or not, and she really showed up. Um, some players, bet Nigel Laney Hamilton, who's great, but I didn't realize how good her defense was. So they have a lot of players that are just so versatile and can do so many things, and a lot of great bench players too. So I'm shaking in my boots a little for this Liberty team.
Liberty have they've gone wire to wire, right? They've come out focused this year. The Aces would be going for their third title. It's kind of hard. You look across all sports,
Yeah.
right? In the NFL, I don't know the last team that won three straight. Like it's sometimes teams get back to back, but three straight is tough. Um, and like you said, so down low. So the Liberty have an advantage down low, and they sometimes they neutralize Asa, right? Asa Wilson.
Asia.
Asia, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm coming across as an outsider, and I am, to be honest. But and she won MVP, right?
Yeah.
She's
She's
she's the best
insane.
in the country,
Yeah.
best in the world. Um, but yeah, I was looking at the stats. Liberty 31 rebounds, Aces 22 rebounds. So Liberty won the glass. They shot better from three.
Hmm.
Typically, when you do that, you win. Um, and no, it was fun. It was fun to watch. I'm going to tune in the rest of the series. Um, what do you have predictions? Do you have hopes? You have hopes for the Aces. You're an Aces fan. But where,
Yes.
where do you where do you see this going? Is this like something where the Aces typically lose the first game, then they come back, or like,
The Aces certainly are motivated by losing. They're a little, I don't want to say hot-headed, but reactionary in some ways. Um, it's hard to predict because sometimes you don't know which Aces team is going to show up. Same with, really any of these teams, but based on today, Liberty's really they have it together. But we didn't see the kind of performance from Asia Wilson that she usually gives,
Hmm.
and that's saying she had I think it was 21 points
Yeah.
tonight. That's kind of low for her, which is crazy. Um, and some other players on the Aces, Jackie Young, um, she can score over 20 easily. Sort of had a bit of a Jackie Young drought. So we're waiting to see her, come back.
You mentioned
But
four
it's,
four Olympians, right? They
yeah,
have four. I mean, Liberty have two. So there's overall, if you need a reason to watch, folks, there's six of the U.S. Olympians are in this matchup. But go ahead, I interrupted you. Sorry.
yeah, no. Predictions are hard. Every team is playing so well this season.
Yeah.
And I don't know if part of that is because they know there's so much media attention. They really want to, show out at this elite level. But yeah, everyone's just so good. It's hard. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean this is the playoffs. This is make or
Yeah.
break. Um, have you ever been out to Las Vegas to watch a game there?
No, but that's my next stop. Now
Yeah,
I have a reason to go to Las Vegas.
there you go. What are your plans to watch like the next few games? You gonna get back to the Barclays or game watches?
I don't know, these ticket prices. Um, Definitely some watch parties with friends, or I'll watch by myself and, be texting and checking in with people.
Yeah.
But definitely will follow. I hope it goes to game five. Be the most interesting, but we'll see what
I mean, that'd be
happens.
good. I mean, anytime of like rivals like this, you just want more of the games, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
there's this window, you want more. And then this is just the semifinals. So
Hmm.
what? The other one's the Sun and the Lynx on the other
Yep,
side. So then you got to pull through there. But we need a championship in New York, right? I did it. I
we
did
do.
it on that. It's been 108 seasons, and I wasn't even counting WNBA. And the Liberty are the one original franchise that have never won a title.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's overdue.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, cuz I don't know. You're an Aces fan. You might have to help us out here. And I imagine you were there today in Barclays. You saw all the New Yorkers, and you're a transplanted New Yorker. You're here now.
Yeah,
Different
it's hard.
vibes.
I mean, if the Liberty win this series, obviously I'm going to root for them. Um,
You're a WNBA fan. You root for all the teams I see.
I root for everyone, but no, the Liberty's great. They have amazing players. The fans are great. I don't know if you know about the mascot, Ellie the elephant, who's a sensation.
Of whose mascot is that? Liberty?
Liberty.
Why is it an elephant?
It's a great question.
All right. Well, luckily,
But
we're powered by AI in this pod. So, well, I'm gonna look it up. Well, tell me about the elephant though, the mascot.
she is arguably the best mascot in the league, fan
Arguably.
favorite. They based her off of like a Brooklyn girl, so she dances, the way she interacts with fans. Some people go just to see Ellie. She's a sensation.
Oh my God, she's holding like a bag, like she's holding like a Prada bag, like
Oh
in her
yeah,
in her arm.
always.
She's fancy. She wears tutus. She has a crown because, of course, the Statue of Liberty.
Hmm.
Why is she an
Custom
elephant?
J's, the
Right.
whole thing.
Ellie the elephant, connection to Ellis Island and Brooklyn's heritage.
Oh,
Right?
I
Named
didn't know that.
symbol of immigration and hope in New York City, which Ellis Island is. For those who don't know, right? I think everyone should know this, right? It's
I hope.
a beacon of hub of immigration back in the day when immigration was positively looked upon around this country. Um, that's interesting.
Wow,
So check it out.
that
Google
makes me like her
it.
more.
Yeah. Well, the more you know. Now you can share that with your crew.
I will.
Um, all right, Betty. Well, let's so our we're not gonna do a prediction. We're gonna hope for a hard fought series. The podcast is gonna root for the Liberty. If the Aces win, we'll be happy for you to get your third straight title. Make your last pitch to people for why they should watch this series, why they should tune into WNBA more. Sum it up for us.
Yeah. Wow. It's just so fun to watch. Um, Also the best like sports crowd being at these games. Everyone's so nice, no like aggro sports fans. It's just a great community of people. It's up and coming. Every team is so good. Um, And the personalities and the team camaraderie is just so great to witness. Um, and women can do it all. So don't sleep on the W.
Love it. Love it. I'm gonna be watching. And I love it. Sounds like a good family fun atmosphere too, which not always
Yeah.
true with some of the other sports. All right. Thank you so much, Betty. Awesome talking to you about this.
Thanks for having me, cuz.
Go Liberty. Go W overall though. Go the W.
Go W.
All right. Take care. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. As I continue to grow this, as we continue to grow this, please share with me what you think at cleatsbydre_pod on both X and Instagram. And please share this episode with someone new who you think might enjoy it too, whether it be a WNBA fan or a lifelong embattled Mets fan or anyone else. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.